Well, good afternoon. It is truly a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for asking me. I've enjoyed every one of the presentations. Boy, there's a lot of sparks that can fly when we start getting together and talking about some of the issues that we face. Um, let's see. Whoop. Good stuff. So, when I was asked to come and be part of this conference, I thought long and hard about what I wanted to speak about. And I couldn't help but think about our roots, our origins, and our history, and how important those things are. Marcus Garvey, who is a Jamaican-born political activist, publisher, journalist, entrepreneur, said one time, "A people without the knowledge of their past history, their origin, and culture is like a tree without roots." Well, as we discuss and ponder all the many future-defining topics that have been brought up today, we should also continue to be proud of our roots and of the choices and reasonings that went behind the purposeful, selective breeding of our dogs. The dogs of the past who established the specific breed traits that were prized and the characteristics of our many individual breeds. So while it's absolutely important to look to the future, I think, and the road ahead, I think it's also equally important to look back, to remember where we've been, where we've come from, and that road that we've already traveled. Don't forget to do this. There we go. The author of the books, A Dog's Purpose, A Dog's Journey, and A Dog's Way Home, W. Bruce Cameron, said, and I'll quote this one, "Back during the most dramatic and challenging time in our history, when we first came together with wolves, we had no idea that it was changing everything. But we literally evolved together. Without us, there would be no dogs, and vice versa." Dogs were first domesticated. They were the first domesticated animal, long before man kept livestock or even grew crops on a regular basis. Somewhere between 30 and 40,000 years ago, man was living and hunting in close proximity with Canis lupus, the original canine, the wolf species from which all breeds have stemmed. As we move along in Earth's history and timeline, to approximately 15,000 years ago, archaeological findings show that dogs were found virtually everywhere that man was. The ancient Egyptians may have been the first to purposely breed specific traits. Hunting, guarding, and war were the three main ones back then. But so revered were their dogs that canine attributes were bestowed upon Anubis, their god of death, but also their guardian of the afterlife. This god was an essential part of their beliefs in their life after death, which is why they built those great big pyramids. Anubis played a crucial role in the process through which every person hoped to survive death and ensure immortality in the afterlife. The proliferation of Anubis figurines and artwork around burial sites speaks to how important the Egyptians thought of him as the protector of themselves after death. In ancient China, dogs were bred to look like lions, the noble animal in Chinese culture. Think of the Tibetan Mastiff, the Pekingese, the Chow Chow, the Shih Tzu. The genetics for these breeds were carefully selected to enhance the resemblance to a lion. But each of these breeds is very diverse in its purpose and its size. Now, these are but two examples of ancient cultures and how they revered dogs and how dogs worked into their lives and into their culture. in their art, in their jewelry, in their utilities. These two examples are just the tip of the iceberg. There are hundreds and hundreds and thousands of examples that can be found. The diversity of how animals were depicted and used for adornment are so numerous. In the top, I don't know how to do a pointer thing, but you'll know which one I'm talking about. This is a Roman pendant that was found in an archaeological dig. A wall drawing of a guard dog that was found in the ruins of Pompeii. A bas-relief sculpture on a Roman wall dated 510 to 500 BC. And a Grecian vase from about 125 AD. So just think about the dogs of old. Helpful hunters, herding dogs, guarding dogs, war dogs, tracking and retrieving and sledding dogs, dogs that minded the gardens to make sure the deer and the rabbits didn't eat all the produce. Vermin dogs, which played an essential and huge part of family households throughout history. Loyal and noble animals, every single one of them. Oh, yep, there we go. We'll just leave that for a sec. By the 1800s, purebred dogs were becoming status symbols, whether bred for aesthetics, to be a lap dog or just a pet and a companion, or bred for a specific duty or job. Breeders planned breedings and chose breeding stock to produce the best hunter, the best ratter, the best ground dog, the best retriever, or the dog that was the best example and portrayed certain physical attributes that they wanted in that breed. When you go to an art museum, you see countless examples of dogs, prized so much that they're included in paintings, on porcelain pieces, and on earthenware. From as early as the cave drawings that I showed earlier, and statues and stoneware in ancient civilizations, to paintings depicting hunt scenes, family outings and gatherings, to royal nurseries. Dogs are commonly included as family members because they were essential to the home and to the family in one way or another. We have hundreds and hundreds of breeds now, making dogs the most diverse species on Earth. I need a water. They are part of almost every facet of life, from activities such as companionship, therapy, search and rescue, hunters, trackers, seeing eye dogs. As breed enthusiasts and as judges, we must take the time to educate ourselves about the breeds that we judge. Thank you. That would be wonderful. We need to know why they are unique, and we should be well versed in how the breed's history and its origins and its purpose resulted in the breed's nuances and specific breed traits. The traits that define them as the breed that they are. Thank you so much. So let's think about a couple of breeds, and I'll just leave a couple of pictures up for right now. The Bulldog has been mentioned. But what was the purpose of that powerful, up-tilted, and strong jaw of the Bulldog? Well, this dog's skull is actually a helmet. It's literally a helmet to protect their brain, to protect them. This dog would go up against a bull, grab onto its nose or its cheek or somewhere on his face, and be able to hang on no matter how that bull thrashed and shook it. Now, we were talking about the breathing and that it's a brachycephalic breed. If that dog could not breathe, if its nose was such that it could not breathe, it never would have been able to do its job. It wouldn't have been able to hold on to that bull because it couldn't breathe. If we compare the English, the Irish, and the Gordon Setter, each breed to do virtually the same job, what factors made the differences and their individual characteristics so desirable? Well, the landscape of those three countries are very distinct, giving them very distinct hunting grounds and terrain. And that made these breeds' different physical attributes desirable and their colors more desirable. Time and purposeful breeding did the rest. Consider the Newfoundland dog. The webbing between its toes is of a quantity and a consistency that enables it to balloon. But why? Well, that rather small characteristic helps make this breed incredible swimmers. When you pick up a Newfoundland's foot, you should actually be able to feel the ballooning possible in the webbing of their feet. Why do bloodhounds have that hanging dewlap and that loose skin? Well, it's not just that they're so charming when they look so sad, but head down, nose to the ground, that loose skin forms a cone that helps them that helps trap the scent so that they are a better tracker, so that they can smell better and be able to follow a track better. This characteristic is both functional and aesthetically pleasing. And lastly, why is that melting look and those beautiful, profusely haired ears on a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel so prized? Well, these small dogs were purposely bred many years ago to mirror the physical traits of the facial traits of King Charles II. These little companions were so highly prized at court, and boy, what a boost to the royal ego. Now, coming from an Arctic breed, Samoyed in particular, one of the absolutely essential physical traits is a sturdy, square, and powerful body. With all of the snow that we have during Canadian winters, sledding was a natural pastime for me. We used to enjoy it a lot. And we also had a German Shepherd. And she was very much a European type German Shepherd, very moderate, very strong, good sound legs. When running the SAMs in the wintertime, we would also harness up the Shepherd. And she loved the outing. She loved to go and run with the SAMs. And she did really well when she was on snow. But when it came to any kind of icy conditions, it was so readily apparent why the Samoyed had an advantage. Because their square body, their low, solid center of gravity, made them have a much more sure footing. They could trot over ice and snow and not slip and slide. The German Shepherd had a little more problem. So she just kind of walked along and let the Sammys take the harnesses. Now, of course, Sammys also have many other traits that make sledding what they were bred to do. Their beautiful feet, their well cushioned and hare feet, snowshoe feet. That was also an advantage. One more. Now, some unique traits in breeds are functional, and some, like the beautiful ears on a Cavalier, are aesthetic. But all of these traits were initially bred for and jealously and carefully guarded in breeding programs. It's essential to note that physical traits can only be bred for and enhanced if those traits already exist and were manifest. So the genes for these traits were already there. For instance, unless a brachycephalic, short-faced, or an osteochondrodysplastic, short-legged gene were available to use and be selected for, no amount of breeding in the world could have produced them. Genetics can only be manipulated insofar as a gene already exists. You know, that's the wrong one. Breeders are not magicians. We can't create a Basset. a basset by randomly breeding dogs off into infinity. But if you breed a short-legged dog to a short-legged dog, and then select for other qualities and physical features while maintaining the short-legged characteristic, you can, after years of selected breeding, result in consistently producing healthy and game basset hounds. That's my son David when he was about 15, so it's about 25 years old, that picture. And that was his dog, Chip, who was a Canadian champion. He's a puppy right there. Now the same is true for short-faced dogs, such as Pekingese, Pug, Japanese Chins, and Bulldogs. The gene for short faces exists and was used by breeders selectively to develop these beautiful breeds, which are unique and which consistently pass along their unique characteristics to their progeny. The problem is, and we've already talked about this, it was mentioned, when extremes come into play, when you take a beautiful characteristic and you go to the extreme and then make it no longer functional and no longer healthy. So we need to consider what can be done to educate new dog owners, new and long-time show and trial enthusiasts, the general public, youth groups, and lawmakers. We need to educate them about the sport of purebred dogs in all of its forms: conformation, performance, trialing. And part of the education and information must include proud, factual, and comprehensive historical facts. You know, I was a little disheartened recently when I was at a dog show, and a couple that was new to the dog show world came and chatted with another Sami breeder, a longtime friend of mine, and myself. Now, my friend has what I would consider one of the most extensive collections and libraries of Samiot information, books, videos, magazines, and photos. She also has a lot of other dog literature, but her Sami collection is amazing. She offered to have this young couple come out to her home, and she could show them photos of many of the dogs that are featured in their dog's pedigree. She also graciously offered to have them borrow books, borrow magazines, so that they could read up on their chosen breed. And the response from this young couple is, why would we want to do that? Now, they weren't being flippant. They really didn't understand why it was important for them to know the history of their chosen breed, to understand some of the concerns of the breed, some of the concerns of the past that were bred to improve, and things in the future that we can also look back to find out how breeders moved through other problems when we face problems. Let's see. We need to remember the lessons of the past so that we can enhance and the positive traits that you want to see passed down from generation to generation. Now, that one encounter made me truly realize that it is our duty as breeders, as members of the purebred dog community, as judges, to know about and really care about the origins and history of our breeds, because we are the real custodians and the true advocates of purebred dogs. And we need to promote and encourage conservation, the conservation of this essential knowledge. In a magazine article I read lately, a very interesting point was brought forward. The gist of the article was that when breeds were being established by breeders who had specific purposes in mind, specific traits that they wanted to solidify and perpetuate, they bred carefully for those traits. Today, it seems and unfortunately, it seems that sometimes the main reason for breeding a dog or breeding to a dog is their show record, the wins that they've had, the wins that they've amassed. Dog shows used to be the place where breeders brought their dogs to have them seen by other breeders, to have them evaluated on their true to standard characteristics, temperament, health, gaming abilities, and physical attributes. Shows were where you got to take a first good look at possible stud dogs that you may want to use to enhance your lines. Today, some, and I will emphasize some, not all, but some top show dogs exhibit traits that breeders of old would never have tolerated in their breed. A showy dog that wins is sometimes used at stud extensively, and if breeders aren't vigilant, that can lead to some non-typical traits becoming part and parcel of that breed going forward. As has been stated by some very learned minds, perhaps it's time to quit putting so much emphasis on improving or enhancing breeds and really focus on preserving our breeds. By presenting calm, organized, well thought out, and articulate facts, we may be able to stem some of the public hysteria and misinformation that is fueling the current situation in so many countries around the world. And having our solid and proud history to back us up is one way to ensure that our facts are on a firm footing. In the sport of dogs and the myriad of generations of purposeful breeding of healthy dogs, our roots run very deep, and we need to proudly pass on that knowledge that has come with centuries of being custodians and advocates for the many breeds that we have today. Thank you.